take my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy Michael Kotze. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Kotze, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida too. Mike Kotze, 561-441-2730. A ride.
Say hello to the all-new Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do so much more for you. Need tickets to see your favorite artist? Craving your comfort restaurant? Just sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. It learns your style, anticipates what's next, and makes it happen across Echo, Fire TV, and more. Learn more at amazon.com/new Alexa.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia,
and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk Republican Party. With us is our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. And I'm Judge Weinberg, Judge Richard Weinberg. Welcome back to our show.
In case there was another Judge Weinberg.
Well, actually there was, but he wasn't the anchor of this show, so we passed him by. Okay. So I'll tell you what I want to talk about, which I find very troubling indeed, and I think the whole country should be paying attention to this. And it's a topic that Jesse and Eric and I have been talking about, but it has a new light and troubling light now. We've been talking about the enemy within America. You have these radical socialists who have no respect for the constitutional republic, for the Constitution itself, for law and order, for the basic freedoms that made this country so successful as we go into our 250th year. And these radical socialists are dangerous, and Mondami is a perfect example of that. And you have other radical socialists, democratic socialists, being successful across the country, and they're undermining this country, and they're undermining the Democratic Party. They're moving the Democratic Party to the left, and so a major political party could be on the verge of a hostile tender offer by these crazy guys who offer nothing and will grab everything and use the Democratic Party as a vehicle for socialism and disrupting our constitutional order and our basic freedoms. That bothers me a lot. Related to that issue is this movement of Islamists all across the world, and all across the world being Europe. Europe just came up with a dumb idea, the European Union. They're going to fine those countries, members of the European Union, that don't accept migrants. And they're going to fine them per day in a substantial amount of euros. And I predict that if they try to go forward with this, you're going to have a breakdown of the European Union. Whether you thought it was a good idea or a bad idea when it started, it certainly turned out to be a foolish endeavor. And Brexit is a perfect example where the English decided they didn't want to have their country overrun by people who had no commitment to the culture and the values and the laws of England. And that's why England is in trouble, and France is in trouble, and Germany is in trouble, and Italy is in trouble, and all these places are in trouble because they're being overrun by people who want to come and impose their values, their culture, their religion, their intolerance on the rest of the community. So Europe is at risk. But I submit to you, the United States is at risk too. And the perfect example of that is what happened in Minneapolis. Now, what happened in Minneapolis, in a great column in last week's Wall Street Journal by our friend Kim Strassel, she wrote a column. She says, look, what you have here is you have a perfect storm of the welfare state giving free stuff, free money, making a dependency class who vote the right way, in their view, which is for the Democrats, and have no commitment to the values and the cultures of America. In fact, you have a culture, Somalia, which is a corrupt culture, which is a lawless culture, which is tribal, which is cultist, which is intolerant, and it's fraudulent. Everything about that culture they've brought over here that's negative, and what they did is they've taken everybody's saying it's $1 billion. It's a lot more than $1 billion. And everybody's saying it's Minnesota. It's a lot more than Minnesota. It's across the country. All kinds of welfare programs, whether it's housing, whether it's medical, whether it's food stamps, whatever the device is to get free money and to cheat the system. It's going across the country, and the Islamists have been using this, and particularly the Somali community, and it's breaking. That is probably true in Maine as well. And we had Chairman Comer of the Oversight Committee on Cass and Cosby the other night, and they're looking at this across the country. So that's my introductory salvo. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing the convergence of the open border policy under the Biden administration meeting the let's give away everything for free stuff, affordability policy. And this is what happens. I think Kim Strassel has it exactly right. But on a certain level, we understand why people are committing fraud. They want the money, and they're going to. Some of this money, by the way, gets shipped back to Somalia and finds its way into the hands of Al-Shabaab, which is a foreign terrorist organization. So, but what is most disturbing? I mean, there's just so much so disturbing about this, of course. But while this was going on, elected officials were aware of it. People who were responsible for securing the border were aware this was going on, but they left the border open. Governor Walz of Minnesota, the vice presidential candidate with Kamala Harris, was aware this was going on, but didn't do anything to shut it down. In fact, when whistleblowers stepped forward to point it out, they were prosecuted. They were called bigots. They were called racists. They were called xenophobes. I mean, it just turns the world on its head. So we really have to ask ourselves, we understand why criminals commit crimes. They're criminals. But the question is, what about people who are supposed to have the responsibility for preventing these crimes, overseeing how these monies are spent? They're the guardians of our tax dollars. What is motivating them to look the other way? Of course, it's their own personal interest. I don't think for a minute, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think for a minute Governor Walz lined his pocket monetarily in any way. But he wanted those votes. Similarly, when you had these kafir Nazis on college campuses calling for the destruction of the Jewish state of Israel and calling to globalize intifada and kill Jews, Kamala Harris was silent. Chuck Schumer was silent. Hakeem Jeffries was silent. Governor Walz was silent. Why? I mean, do they want Israel destroyed? Do they want Jews killed? Probably not. But the votes were so important to them. These people have no moral compass. They have no core beliefs. They're willing to compromise on every issue in an effort to get a vote, except their deification of the state, this belief that people in government know better than you do what is good for you. They believe they know better than what the laws as drafted are, and they will pick and choose which laws to enforce in order to advance their own political agenda. And this is just a prime example of that phenomenon in overdrive.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I think that it's interesting, and I want to echo what Eric said. They want the votes. Now, I say that because we've spoken about this and we've seen this occur in other regions of our country. Look at the European Union. You touched upon it, Your Honor, about how their open border policies has allowed illegal migration and unchecked migration of Muslims and these individuals to come flowing into their communities to the point now where they are a voting bloc that's important and changing the fabric, the society of our European countries, like Great Britain, and we've seen that in London and other places. Here, we've seen the same thing. And Eric, and you're both right, but it's about the votes. Again, I don't believe that Walsh lined his pockets with money, but he certainly did not take an active role in opposing that. He didn't take an active role of stopping the flow of this corruption to go forward. In fact, as was pointed out, by going after the whistleblowers, he was actually encouraging it. And why? Because within his state are prominent socialist Democrats that are connected to this community. I mean, the money was flowing from COVID into Minnesota, which is like one of the greatest welfare states we have in our nation. They're proud of it. Governor Walz has said he's proud of this, and I just don't understand it. I believe in, a good day's work and a good day's pay. I mean, that's what all of us are. We're brought up to be in this country. You work hard for your money. We want to hand up sometimes, not a handout. But what he did, we saw them. Money that was supposed to go to food pantries, to autism centers and such to address that crisis was being redirected to these not-for-profits that popped up out of nowhere. A couple of millions of federal dollars came in, and all of a sudden, 10 or 15 more of these not-for-profits popped up all over the place, and they were funneled money. And you were right, we discussed this last week. And then from that community, from the Somalian community, those federal dollars, those tax dollars, whether they state or federal, those U.S. tax dollars, in part, were funneled to terrorist groups like Shabab. I mean, I don't understand this. I don't understand how this can occur. I don't understand how anybody can take a blind eye of it. And I can't understand why anybody would say this is political. The facts are there. I believe that there have been 72 arrests with almost about 50, don't hold me to the exact number, 50 convictions, either they be by trial or by plea agreement. I mean, this has happened. It's been allowed to occur, and there really has been no consequence. Except now, Governor Walz wants to take on the federal government. Well, you know what? You may take on a bear and find out what's going to be coming out of that, because it's not going to be good for the people of Minnesota to find out what their governmental leaders have been allowing to happen in that area and others.
Jesse, to your point, Walz has doubled down and tripled down. He says he wants more Somalian immigrants. I mean, more Somalian immigrants. By the way, they just revealed
if you double down, you're going to Black Hawk down. It'll be like Mogadishu again.
Listen, that's exactly right. You're creating a group of people who have no loyalty to this country and who are ripping this country off. So what you don't do is you don't double down on that. And by the way, when they say, they contribute to the community, if you want to do, as a CPA might do, a balance sheet about what they get and what they contribute, overwhelmingly it's a dependency class. They've created a dependency class for a bunch of free riders who contribute very, very little. Substantial amount, super majorities of them get more welfare, contribute less to the tax base or economic productivity than any other group in the state of Minnesota.
But irrespective of how, I think we should just focus on the people who are breaking the law. To the extent there are people from Somalia who have immigrated here
I'm sure
who want to be Americans and are good citizens.
But the point is, this is part of the problem, and this is what the whistleblower said. People in the community knew about it, and they stayed silent because there's a culture of what the Italian mafia used to call omerta. Nobody would cooperate and say anything. It was state bureaucrats who broke the scandal about these monies. I mean, they went from a few $1 million a year in certain programs to 100 or 200 million. And the question became, where did that money go? And the autism, which Jesse pointed out, is a perfect example. All of a sudden, the numbers were staggering with the number of kids getting autism. And the science, to use a term of what the Democrats always like to use, the science did not back up the argument that there were more real cases of autism. And that's a real problem. So, Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I think whenever we have these discussions, of course, you have to separate the citizens who want to come into this country, make a better life of themselves, do it the right way, come here legally, and make a contribution to our society and our communities. But there's also a segment here that, as you pointed out, is strife with corruption. They bring the corrupt philosophy and way of life from in this case Somalia, and they start enterprising it here in the United States. But it's on the responsibility of local officials, state officials, federal officials to identify them, root that corruption out. Here, it's like we talked about with Governor Walz. He's doubling down on it. He's doubling down on the fact that there have been already about 50 convictions and more than about 70 arrests, and he's trying to turn a blind eye to it, even with these so-called laws that he's paying about ending corruption in these type of issues. The horse is out of the barn already, and they're not even closing the gate.
As a general matter, if you're on the same side of an issue as Ilhan Omar, you're on the wrong side of an issue. And
Exactly.
of course,
Exactly.
this woman is out there touting how wonderful the Somali community is, in particular these people that have been committing this fraud. She's been running interference for them.
Well, they're part of her political and financial support.
Exactly. How much of those tax dollars that were stolen find their way back to her in the form of donations? I'd be curious to see that.
And this is the one thing that we have to talk about. There's corruption, gentlemen, and there's corruption. There's corruption when you have individual acts of corruption where a bookkeeper, pads the bills and issues some checks to herself, like just happened in a famous restaurant here in New York City, where the bookkeeper ripped off $2.5 million, and she did it on her own petty grafting, so she could buy a house in Pennsylvania with her husband. And that
she couldn't afford a house in New York.
Right, of course. But so therefore she should get off scot-free. Yeah. So that she was just arraigned on this. So she did this, and she stole this money, and $2.5 million from the restaurant. And the restaurateur is saying, no wonder we couldn't make any money. So she was grifting, but that was an individual exercise. What's different about the Somalian situation is that this was organized crime. This was a systemic, organized, disciplined group, shared information, worked together, created these not-for-profits, skimmed the money. Some people were sympathizers to terrorists. They moved the money overseas to Somalia, terrorists. So this was a big deal.
And it was done with the complicity of elected officials.
Exactly.
That is the most outrageous part, in my opinion.
And the fact of the matter is, to my mind, it raises real questions. One, this wasn't that they were just negligent or incompetent, but when they went after the whistleblowers, that's something. And to the extent that they were warned that some of this money was going overseas to terrorist organizations, then they really had an obligation to bring this to law enforcement and do the right thing. And Ellison, who's a former, if I recall correctly, former member of Congress, now the Attorney General.
And a Louis Farrakhan's fan.
And a Louis Farrakhan supporter. And former, I think, chairman of the National Democratic Party, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
This character says there's nothing wrong with this. So it's an isolated thing. It's not isolated. And if these people had real knowledge that this was supporting terrorist groups, this money is being over terrorist groups, they come perilously close. I'm not accusing that they are guilty of it. They come perilously close to the line of whether knowingly aiding or abetting. And that's worthy of an investigation.
I just want to add this one final point. Can I just add this one final point? When we were talking about, and we made reference, it goes back to Al-Shabaab, and I kind of made the joke a little bit about Mogadishu. It's not really a joke. Black Hawk Down, this very famous movie, it's about Americans fighting in Mogadishu to save Muslims from other Muslims. Al-Shabaab is the group that shot them down. Al-Shabaab is the group that shot them down, and that's who's getting this money in large part back in Somalia.
And killed our people.
Killed Americans.
Killed our people. Jesse, your final thoughts before we close this segment.
My final thought, and also I think you need to look at politics in this, and when we talk about elected officials doubling down like Governor Walz, it demonstrates to everyone that the true powerhouse in Minnesota is not the governor or the state legislature. It is Congressman Omar, who is with these individuals. He does not want to do anything. The Democrats there do not want to do anything to disturb that. That's how far left and how captured and hostage the Democratic Party has become in Minneapolis and throughout this country by this socialist left progressive group.
Absolutely right. All right, we're taking a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in about a few moments with more interesting and important conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and
essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the vice chair of the New York State Republican Party, as well as being the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Switching gears, gentlemen, I want to talk to you about what's going on in the Middle East. And I characterize this, is this a false peace or a real peace? And I'm very troubled by what's going on. So let me lay out to you what I see happening or not happening. Number one, let's go to Hamas, the start of the war on October 7th, a couple of years ago.
2023.
23 is exactly right. 2 years ago. So what happens? They're supposed to have peace. The deal is they're supposed to get out of Gaza. They're surrendering their military and their political control. They have neither surrendered their military or their political control. They're consolidating their power. They're trying to rearm. They've reconsolidated. They now have 20,000, the reports are now 20,000 military troops back in Gaza ready to fight. So much for that real peace in Gaza. Hezbollah in Lebanon. What's going there? They were supposed to root out, the governor of Lebanon is supposed to root out Hezbollah. They failed to do that in their defense, and I mean that lightly. Their defense is Hezbollah is stronger than the government of Lebanon, and they haven't done a very good job of that. And that's a real problem as well. Next, Iran. I'm always troubled by Iran. Iran is consolidating its power. They're stabilizing their support. They're exterminating their enemies. They're feeding funds and intelligence to terrorist groups again throughout the Middle East. So when I pose the question, real peace or false peace, I think at this time it's a holding action. I don't want to prejudge this, but I'm far from sanguine about the results. I think this thing is going to blow up in the Middle East again. And I think that's very, very unfortunate, but it may be absolutely essential because these terrorist groups have to be put in their place once and for all. You know, there's that old expression, there's no substitute for victory. Well, I say to you, there is no substitute for victory. When you make a mistake, you're supposed to learn from it, correct your course, and never repeat it. Never believe that these people are going to go willingly into the sunset and allow freedom, tolerance, coexistence with people who disagree with them. It's not what they're about. They're hegemonic, they're terrorists, they're intolerant, they want to dominate at the point of a sword, and we have to deal with this. And that deals with all of those. And let's not forget the Houthis, they're still playing their games as well. Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think there's a peace. I think there's a ceasefire. And it's, remember, you have this supposed to happen in phases. Let's talk about Gaza first. It's talking about happen in phases. We still haven't finished phase one because there's still one dead Israeli, the remains of one dead Israeli in Gaza. And Hamas is feigning to be excavating to try and find the body. But until they're all returned, dead and alive, phase one isn't finished. But in terms of your concerns about Hamas reconstituting, there's no doubt that more and more people in Gaza are gravitating to Hamas and are being radicalized to the extent they can be any more radicalized. But remember, the Israelis do have they have surrounded Gaza. They've cut off Rafah. They've cut off the Philadelphia corridor, so they can't be smuggling weapons through there. They have an embargo in the Navy in the Mediterranean. They can't come through Israel. Now they are trying to get weapons into Gaza with drones. It's my understanding is, hundreds of drones a day are being launched out of the Sinai into Gaza and dropping weapons. But it's not at the same pace, and they're not able to rearm it the same way they were before October 7th. Now that's not to say that everything's fine. Of course it isn't. It's important to recognize, or what UN Ambassador Mike Waltz said yesterday at the UN. He reiterated at the UN that Hamas must lay down their arms. They must surrender. There is no role for them in a future Gaza. And he reiterated that President Trump is committed to that, and he reiterated that they can do it the easy way or the hard way. It's clear that it's going to have to be the hard way. And it's understood the Israelis are going to have to go back in and finish the job. In the meantime, the Israelis are rearming. They're getting ready. They're getting their tanks ready. They're getting their service members ready. This is going to end. It's going to happen. People were saying, "Oh, is Trump getting weak-kneed?" Let's remember before the United States joined Israel and attacked the Iranian nuclear facilities, people were saying, "Oh, there's a rift between Trump and Netanyahu. Trump is holding Netanyahu back." And then lo and behold, next day, we attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. I happen to think that that's similar to what's going on here. I don't think there's any distance between the prime minister and the president on this particular issue. And I do believe that Israel is going to have to finish the job. I would like them to do it sooner rather than later. And it's going to happen. Hamas is going to be eviscerated. They are going to be destroyed. And it's going to be done the hard way. The Israelis are going to do it. You talked about Hezbollah. Yeah, of course, Hezbollah is also, like Hamas, is not living up to its obligations under the ceasefire. But unlike in the past, the Israelis would make the mistake that if there was a minor breach of the ceasefire, the Israelis wouldn't retaliate, or the world would say, just sit tight, it's okay, it's just a minor breach. That's not happening anymore. Even in the most minor breach by Hezbollah, the Israelis are responding to very effectively and aggressively. And there is a will amongst the Lebanese government to try and disarm Hezbollah, because the only way the Lebanese people can be free is if Hezbollah is destroyed, as certainly as a political and a military force. But they just don't have the ability. So it's going to have to be the Israelis that are going to have to continue to degrade and ultimately destroy and neuter, literally and figuratively, Hezbollah. You talk about Iran. Remember, Iran has no anti-missile defense systems. None. They've been obliterated. The Israelis have free access to the skies if they want it. We can be spying on them. The Israelis can be spying on them. We know for the most part what they're doing. If they attempt to rebuild a missile defense system, we'll take it out. The Israelis will take it out. If they attempt to reconstitute in any meaningful way their ballistic missile system or their nuclear program, we and the Israelis have the capability of taking it out. The Israelis are not going to make the same mistake of allowing any government, including the United States, to get in their way to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. But I think we have to look at this as in a larger picture. Israel is playing beat the clock. Israel has 3 years. They have until the end of the Trump administration to finish all the really big things that they need to do, and that's destroy Hamas, destroy Hezbollah, destroy the Houthis, completely neutralize, make sure Iran remains neutralized, and enter the Abraham Accords, or expand the Abraham Accords with some of the other Arab countries and the Muslim countries. Why 3 years? Because at the end of the Trump administration, one of two things is going to happen. There's going to be a Democratic president if the Republicans lose. And we know, just by definition, in the direction that the Democratic Party is taking, it's really the Democratic Socialists of America would be the president. They're going to be anti-Israel. So the Israelis have to finish the job before there's a president that prevents them from finishing the job. The other possibility is, so I should say there are three possibilities. The other possibility is that a Republican from the isolationist anti-Semitic wing of the party wins, and that person, individual whose philosophy will be no different than that of Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna or AOC, they also will restrain the Israelis. And then, of course, there's a possibility, which from my perspective is by far and away the best, to get someone from the Reagan wing of the party who becomes president and also allows the Israelis to finish what it is they need to finish. But there's no guarantee that they'll be able to do that. So the Israelis need to be creating facts on the ground right now. Finish Hamas, finish Hezbollah, completely, finish neutering Iran. And when the Arab world sees this, and the Israelis are creating facts on the ground. Oh, and the other thing I should add is sovereignty over portions of Judea and Samaria, because the Israelis are never giving that back. So once you create these facts on the ground, you become a military powerhouse, and the Israelis are going to have to shift their expectation from any foreign aid from the United States, to joint ventures with the United States. The days of just money going out are going to end, and the Israelis are going to have to focus on joint ventures like missile defense and these kinds of things.
Jesse, your turn.
I agree with both of you that this is more of a hold than a ceasefire, and that eventually what's going to happen is that Israel is going to have to go in and do the job. What I am heartened by are the statements, as both of you have brought up from the White House, that there can be no real peace if Hamas exists. If it doesn't move forward, if this phase 2 doesn't move forward as we bring down, as we close out phase 1, and we're still waiting for that to be closed out as we negotiate phase 2. It's very simple. If it doesn't move forward, Israel will need to be left to do what needs to be done. And they do have a president right now that will have them do that and be a partner in letting them do that, and has demonstrated that. The president has said we can do this the easy way or the hard way. But there are some other points of negotiations that need to be also looked at here. Certainly funding for the reconstruction, but more importantly is the funding for the International Security Force, who is going to be charged, if Hamas is not demilitarized, with disarming Hamas. There's a long way to go. There is a clock. I agree that the clock is the 3 remaining years of the Trump administration, and I think that Donald Trump, whether it's Venezuela, the Middle East, or anywhere else, is playing his right. We should be not speaking about our plans. I think it's imperative for a superpower like the United States to not identify or project what its plans are. Let the enemies guess. And then you come in with shock and awe to capture them at the most vulnerable of times. They did that with the attack upon the Iranian military, nuclear facilities, and they have done that repeatedly over and over again, as we've seen in Venezuela, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. So right now, I think it's a ceasefire, it's a hold, but eventually, and with a partnership with this American president, Donald Trump, you're going to be able to see Israel finally complete its job before the tenure, within the next 3 years.
You know what I'm troubled by, and you and Eric, Jesse, keep talking about 3 more years, and they have to do with 3 more years. The problem is, in 2026, you have the midterm elections. And you being the political expert on this panel, understand this and follow this very, very carefully. I'm very worried about the Republicans holding on to control of the House. I'm more confident that they'll control the Senate. I'm less confident they'll continue to control the House. It goes against historical records, but these are different times, and I think you can make a very good case that the Republicans could win if it can overcome the gerrymandering gambits of the Democratic Party. And they can make the case why they're entitled to another term, showing that they know how to govern and do the responsible thing. The problem is, if the House falls to the Democrats, and the Democrats, the 3 of us agree, are moving very far left, and they're anti-Israel, and there's an anti-Semitic wing as part of that, you can have a lot of internal discord on the floor of the House and all around Capitol Hill, fighting, supporting Israel. And they're going to go after Trump personally. They've shown they're ready, willing, and able. They're already starting to try to impeach the Secretary of War, Hegseth. They're already doing that, trying to do that against Bobby Kennedy Jr. They will have open season with the subpoena power, the investigative power, the ability to draft articles of impeachment, bring them to a vote. They will divert the attention, the strength of the President of the United States. They will try to make him a lame duck in the last 2 years. Okay. Now, even before you get to the last 2 years, how much attention is diverted during campaign season? And Jesse, you above everybody understand when you're in campaign mode and you're dealing with that, and the big issue, of course, is going to be the economy in the United States, attention is going to be diverted from that, and nobody wants to see the United States being in a war footing across the world, and we have problems all across the world. Final thoughts on that, Jesse, before we break?
It's true. You're going to have an entire Congress that's going to be distracted with their own personal elections and such, and we should be also focused on that. But I also do believe that this president that's in his last term, can't run again, is going to not be defied by anyone. A Democrat, whether it's a Democrat in the minority or a Democrat in the majority, because I think the American people are kind of like sick and done with the impeachment card that the Democrats continuously played. It was once revered as the last nuclear option. Now it's just in the matter of, playbook 101 for the Democrats. This president has enough juice and enough support within the electorate and within America's allies to know that what it has to be done will be done, and he's better prepared than he was in his first term than he is now. Than he was back then. So I believe that while elections will take place and there'll be issues that will be distracting, that first of all, I forecast that we're going to control both chambers of Congress when it's all well and done, because the big, beautiful bill and the benefits economically are going to be hitting next year, just as the people go to the votes. I think Trump is doing what needs to be done to make his domestic policy case, with inflation and interest rates coming down and the economy flowing, and gas prices and so on and so forth moving forward. So all those are in his favor. Does he need to work it? Do Republicans have to need to work it? They do need to work it. But I don't think that this is going to distract this President Trump when it comes to these type of crises.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're taking a break. This is Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. We'll be back in a few moments with our final segment. We're hopeful that the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States House of Representatives, Brian Mast, a distinguished member of Congress, a true war hero, winner of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart, is going to be joining us in a few moments for our final segment. Please stay with us.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg,
Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and
essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and we're honored and privileged indeed to have the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, one of America's heroes, Brian Mast. Brian Mast is a distinguished veteran, served in the Army, winner of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart, graduate of Harvard, a leader of the U.S. Congress, and we're honored and privileged to have you here, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to Let the Record Show.
Yeah, appreciate you having me today.
Eric, your turn with the chairman.
Chairman, welcome. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you.
So I want to start to talk about the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which has finally passed the House and is on its way to the Senate and hopefully soon to the president's desk. As things stand today, at least from where I'm sitting, the American military simply is not equipped to meet all the challenges and threats confronting our country. We don't have enough ships. We don't have enough planes. We don't have enough munitions, missile defense. We don't have enough service members. So the NDAA is supposed to address most, if not all, of those concerns. I guess first, do you share my concern? And second, do you think the NDAA, as constituted, gets us over that hurdle?
Yeah, I'll give you agreement and pushback. The answer for our military, especially you're dealing with a mission set that is always dangerous and very often deadly, as we know, and it's for both defense, deterrence, and sometimes offense against scourges that come against the United States of America. The answer is there's always more that we can do. Now, more specifically, in today's window of time, we have ships, aircraft, things like that need upgraded. We see advancement on battlefields like what's gone on between Russia and Ukraine, where you have a totally new type of warfare over the past couple of years that we have to play some level of catch up in, which is this drone warfare, both offensively and defensively. These very inexpensive pieces of equipment that can destroy very expensive pieces of equipment, all of which are a part of the many layers of the battlefield. So there are things that we can do more. The NDAA met the challenge in the way that Congress can meet it year over year over year, which is we can go out there and we can conduct pay raises for troops. We can go out there and we can make sure that our services have the bombs and bullets that they need from America, for America, and advance different segments of our military into being more advanced. It doesn't all happen at once. And truth be told, the cost to do so, if we were to overhaul our entire military, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force, it would be an expense that we can't bear to do that all at once. So we do it in segments, one at a time. This is a great another year addition to that.
So I guess this is another example of why it's so critical to be fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible, because so much money goes out to programs that some of us don't necessarily think are critical to the United States security. That's less money for our military. So are there programs that we should be cutting or looking to cut and then reallocating to our military?
This is a softball that you were throwing me right now.
We're your friends, Chairman. We're your friends. That's why we're.
Yeah, and in this case, I'm like a major league softball batter for this one because I chair the Foreign Affairs Committee. And as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the State Department, it could probably be looked at in many ways as the most liberal department within the federal government. Just bleeding heart liberals taking American tax dollars and sending them to foreign countries, foreign non-government organizations, foreign adversaries in many cases, in some of the stupidest ways. Now, part of this NDAA was taking what we did on the Foreign Affairs Committee and actually writing the really bad stuff about the State Department out of law and making sure that good stuff is codified into law. There's more work to be done, but we did a ton of that. So let's not be ambiguous about this. The kind of stuff that we were working to write out of law that your State Department was doing, that kind of waste, is your country was paying for transgender operas, transgender musicals, transgender plays, transgender job fairs in countries around the world at, let's say, $500,000 to $1 million a pop in different places. Very specifically, I'll give you a transgender job fair in Bangladesh where the average daily wage is probably $2 a day, and they did that for about $800,000. Or they were expanding atheism in countries across the globe under the guise of international religious freedom, but they were doing it with $500,000 grants in different places. Let's go expand atheism in Nepal for $500,000. What did they do in the end? Not that we needed to do it at all, but they built a 100-slide PowerPoint. Think about how much that might cost you to do it. Maybe you could do it in one evening for free. And they distributed across the country, and they charged the United States government, this international group called Humanist International, $500,000. They probably spent, let's be generous and say they spent $5,000 on it. This is how these NGOs and these programs just burn through your money in wasteful ways that is insulting to every American.
So we can have a transgender show, but we don't have enough ships to challenge China.
That's a really good way to look at it.
It makes perfect sense to me. So I just want to shift gears for a second and talk about your personal story. I don't think people fully, even if people who know who you are, don't fully appreciate what a patriot you truly are. I don't think most of our listeners don't know that you lost both of your legs below the knee in 2010 from an IED while you were serving in Afghanistan. And we're remiss, I wanted to start the show by thanking you for your service and certainly for your sacrifice. But I guess the question I'd like to ask is, after that tragedy, your story is remarkable. You got up, literally, figuratively, and you're the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee. I mean, Foreign Affairs Committee. That's courage. That's a profile in courage, and I applaud you for that. But what I want to know is when you got home, when you came back to the States, did the country rise to the occasion? We know you did, but did the country rise to the occasion? Did it take care of you in the manner that you deserved, and are they doing it enough for our other veterans?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a fence-riding answer in this, too. Number one, I'll just answer affirmatively. The country stepped up in an incredible way that should make everybody across the country proud. And the way that I will illustrate that is people across this country that had some passion that they liked. They liked skiing, or they liked golf, or they were home builders, or they liked whatever it is that they liked in life. As that war was raging, I was injured in 2010. That's when I lost my legs. And they were just saying, how can I take what I like to do in life, or my work on Wall Street, or my work in construction, and how can I bring that to bear to help service members coming home, regardless of the level of injury that they face? How can I bring that to bear to help them? And that was the question that was going through the mind of American after American. I could give you thousands of examples of this. To say that America was rising to the occasion is a drastic understatement. Good. For me, given the America that I saw when I came home. And it's almost a little bit of a painful thing to speak about, because I juxtapose that to my brothers from a different war, those that came home in the war in Vietnam, and received the opposite of that. And this is where I tell people just how big those service members are. Those service members, when I came home, they were fighting like hell to just make sure that what happened to them did not happen to my generation. And I think that just shows how big they are, that they weren't bitter. They weren't angry. They didn't want this reciprocal treatment. They wanted to make sure that what happened before didn't happen again. Those are really big people.
And true patriots, true great Americans.
So, yes, America rose to the occasion. I'll say America rose to the occasion in an incredible way. As
an American, I'm very glad to hear that. Also, as part of your personal story, I found this particularly interesting. But after you retired from the U.S. Army, you volunteered to serve in the Israel Defense Forces in a civilian capacity in a program called SARL. It's the SARL program. I'm curious, what motivated you to do that? What was the experience was like, and has it changed your view of the American-Israeli relationship?
Yeah, so the motivation, I'll sum it up in one word, is pricks. There were some pricks in the world that motivated me to do this. I was a student up at Harvard. This is summer of 2014. I had 2 kids at the time. My wife was pregnant with our third, and we were living in a place just off of the Boston Commons, which is like their Central Park. And each night we would go out to the Boston Commons to let our kids play instead of playing in the alleyway next to where it is that we were staying as I was going to school up there. And one night this summer, there was a war going on in Israel that I didn't agree with. Why are people protesting Israel for defending themselves? Because the fact is, if America was getting shelled by rocket after rocket from the Caribbean or from Canada or Mexico, guys like me would go and kill them, and every American would be proud. So it didn't make sense to me, as I've told many people. But we're out at this Boston Commons, just minding our own business, playing with our kids, and these protesters that are out there draping themselves in Palestinian flags, being radical like what we've seen on college campuses this year and in other places, they started harassing me and my family for being a U.S. service member, which I tell people is not hard to figure out. I usually wear a baseball cap that says Army Rangers, and I don't have any legs, so even these guys can figure it out. But they started harassing me about it, which is fine. I don't mind having altercations with people. But that was the catalyst for me to say, you know what? These pricks are coming out here to protest Israel. I disagree with this. When a battle is laid in front of me, I'm an American, and I'm going to fight that fight that's laid in front of me. How can I deal with this? How can I get my hands dirty and participate in a tangible way? And that's when I started to look around and say, what can I do? All right, well, there's this program that I ultimately found to go out there and just volunteer and assist. And I thought that would be a great way to get my hands dirty, fighting against a cause that had come to my doorstep. And that's how it all began. Learned a great many things there, being on base, serving with the members of the Israeli military, which this was after my 12 years of U.S. military service, but learned a lot about them and what we have in common and, how their military operates, how they feel about defending themselves from a number of different borders. It was an extremely great education for me.
So how did that impact, if at all, your view of how the Israelis have been dealing with Hamas in Gaza?
It impacts me in this way. So I mentioned already I'm a father. And as a father and a military man, I hope that my kids serve in the military and take the time to serve our country. I do not hope that my kids have to go to war and, God forbid, one of them end up like I ended up. That's never a wish. As parents, we hate to see our kids stub their toe. We'd rather do it ourselves. And so this is the reality for Israelis. Number one, it's mandatory military service. So they're all going to go there and carry a rifle in defense of their country. But it's almost guaranteed that during their mandatory military service, they're going to have to pick up that rifle and actually go and carry it in true defense, because they come under rocket attack from whatever direction, like they do year after year, or tunnel attack or paraglider attack, or whatever kind of attack comes against them, like what happens year after year after year. They're not looking to do that. They want to see their kids grow and flourish and start the next generation of family, not have to be in this continual engagement in war. But the fact of the matter is, they do have terrorist neighbors in Gaza, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, Lions Den, Fatah, all these terrorist organizations that have been neighbor to them and just harassing them with attack, abduction, manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter, stabbings, bus bombings, cafe bombings, mall bombings, whatever it is, just year after year after year. And I think they've showed really an unprecedented level of restraint, that their neighbor in Gaza is not just a smoldering pile of ashes.
Well, as a father of a Marine who served in Syria fighting ISIS, and who also had, and I'm honored to be able to say this, had for a brief period of time worked for you as the committee in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn you over to
Chairman Garcia.
Chairman Garcia.
Chairman Garcia. Chairman Mast is yours.
Congressman Mast, it's a pleasure to meet you. And while we may share a title, you are truly an American hero. And I want to thank you on behalf of everyone for your service and your sacrifice and your continued work to make America safe and prosperous. Thank you so much for everything you have done and continue to do. My question is more about the president's national security assessment and how he basically has, dumped on Europe and how it's been conducting itself. How do you feel, and what are your thoughts about the president's national security assessment?
The president's been right on Europe from the 45 administration clear through the 47 administration. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. 45 administration, he didn't want to break up NATO, but he was right to point out you're a part of, much as we're a part of NATO, which is designed to combat formerly Soviet aggression, now Russian aggression and expansion. Why are you all getting all your oil and gas and everything else from Russia? You got pipelines going to Turkey, Nord Stream, Turk Stream, all these different pipelines. Why are you doing that? And you're asking us to give our time, troops, and treasure to defend yourselves. This doesn't make any sense. This is something that he addressed. Now you fast forward, Biden administration, Ukraine war kicks off, like the president always said, wouldn't have happened under his watch. And you go and you see these European nations all saying, look, we need the United States of America to be our security guarantee. Europe is an economy of scale to the United States of America. They have a larger population than the United States of America. They're combating Russia, which has a significantly smaller population and military and GDP. Why is it that they can't go out there and be a credible force against that? And it's because they've allowed themselves for years, and now this is changing because of President Trump, they've allowed themselves to be lulled into this situation where they're weak, they can't recruit, their military is not up to par, their military equipment is not up to par, all those things that we deal with yearly with our National Defense Authorization Act, they haven't been doing that. And they have to lean on America to defend themselves because they don't have any other way. We want Europe as a partner, but not a dependent. We need them to be able to stand on their own in defense and not have to lean on us for all things defense. That's what a real partnership is. And when they have that capability, man, we are one hell of a partnership when we both have that capability. But if one is not pulling their weight, can't do it, then that one is a drag on us. And that's what's been allowed to happen. So the president was right. And, what he's doing is he's saying there's that. There's what you've allowed to happen with immigration across Europe. We have a system there where Islamists have been allowed to immigrate into city after city, country after country, which is degrading the freedom across those places. Because at a very fundamental level, there is this incompatibility between Islam and freedom. All the places that I've been to where freedom is most at risk, it has been because of the presence of Islam, is what I can say about my own personal experience in life. And that's something that Europe is absolutely dealing with right now. And so you deal with that. You deal with their decaying military. The president has said, you got to get these things up to par and you got to deal with these things. And because the president wields a big sword, these countries are, in many cases, answering the call to that. You have these European countries that are raising their GDPs to their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. They're looking at where they have these threats internally because of the people that they've allowed to immigrate. They've looked at where they have these dependencies on Russia, and they're dealing with all of these things. Had they done that years ago, we'd be in a hell of a lot better place. But thank God they're doing it now.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask you this question. It seems that we have a threat in our own hemisphere, and it seems that for decades people forgot about the Monroe Doctrine, which is absolutely essential to maintaining peace and stability over here. And once again, the question is the Monroe Doctrine, is it worth defending, and how is President Trump dealing with that?
It's stronger than ever. And going again to his national security strategy, it is, I think, the most overarching part of that strategy is defend the homeland. And let's look at that in all these different places. Securing the southern border is defending the homeland. Dealing with the illegal immigration that came in through our open southern border is defending the homeland. Dealing with the issues of making sure that where we have these dependencies on China and these other places for rare earth minerals that want to cut America off from it, dealing with that in the way that he's dealing with it, using trade as the largest foreign policy tool, that is defending the homeland. Going out there and securing peace in places like India and Pakistan, or Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, or Israel and Gaza, or all these other places where he's working to secure peace, that is defending the homeland because of things that come across the seas. And definitely bringing a United States of America taxpayer-funded carrier battle group like the Ford Carrier Group, bringing it into the Gulf of America to defend against what has been one of the most prevalent and pervasive threats, the drugs coming into the United States of America through the Gulf, is absolutely defending the America using his Article 2 authority.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you on behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself for joining us today. You really are an American hero. God bless you for all that you've done for America, that you will continue to do for America. Eric and Jesse and I believe that America is under an existential threat, and it's people like you, because of your wisdom, your courage, your sacrifice, give me hope that we will save and make America better. Thank you very much for joining us on Let the Record Show today, and we look forward to having you back on as events unfold. Yes. Thanks again, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Chairman. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, and may God continue to bless this great country. Take care, guys.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening today to Let the Record Show. We were fortunate to have Chairman Brian Mast, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, American hero, as our guest. We're at that time of the year where I want to wish everyone a healthy and happy New Year that's coming up. Hanukkah is coming up. I want to wish our Jewish friends a happy Hanukkah. Christmas is coming up, and I want to wish our Christian friends a wonderful Merry Christmas. On behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, we're truly blessed to have you listening to us week after week. We hope we make a contribution to your worldviews. And once again, I want to say thank you very much for listening. God bless you. God bless your families. And, of course, God bless America. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Levine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Take my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy, Michael Kotze. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Kotze, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida, too. Mike Kotze, 561-441-2730. All right.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.